So predicting games went well last week. Predicting spreads did not. Hello everyone, welcome back to Packers 101, and today we're going to be making more predictions. Now last week I went 10 and 6 predicting games and 6 and 10 predicting spreads. So not a great total, but it is what it is. We move on. Where I was most wrong, Denver, you let everybody down again. You almost answered our prayers with a Hail Mary, only to lose it on the 2-point conversion. Very disappointed. Obviously, Green Bay, they disappointed as well, going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Had a 12-point lead in that game and just completely choked it in the fourth quarter. Our defense forgot how to stop the run, and the offense was just playing stupid. It happens, though. This is Jordan Love's first starting season. There are bound to be a few hiccups. I knew we weren't going 17-0. So, all in all, not too upset about the loss. Just hoping we bounce back week 3. Up first, we got the New York Football Giants heading on down to San Francisco to take on the 49ers in Thursday Night Football. And the 49ers are 10-point favorites. Double-digit spreads. You love those. And now the Giants are without Saquon Barkley. And everyone, I believe, is going to pick the 49ers to run away with this one. And while I agree they're definitely going to win the game, I could see the Giants covering 10 points. Just because I think that team, they're do or die right now. If they continue to go on a losing streak, their season's going to be over by week 6. I think they're going to fight so hard to be in this game, but it's not going to be enough. The Niners are going to win this one, but the Giants, I believe, can cover 10 points. So I will take the Niners to win the game and the Giants to cover 10 points, with 10 points, obviously. Up next, we got the LA Chargers heading on down to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. And there's no spread in this game. It's an even pick. And I really don't want to do this, but I have to. I'm going to take the Vikings. The Chargers have just disappointed this year. Their defense looks absolutely atrocious, which is very disappointing because I thought it was going to be pretty good with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa being healthy, but it just hasn't gone that way. Offensively, they're also without Austin Eckler, who's been a big contributor for them this year. And I just think that the coaching with the Chargers is their biggest problem. Brandon Staley very clearly isn't cutting it. I think it's not a question of if anymore. It's a matter of when Coach Staley gets fired. So even though the Vikings suck and I don't think they're going to win much this year, I do think they'll win this game. So give me the Vikings to win this one. Up next, we got the Tennessee Titans taking on the Cleveland Browns. And the Browns are 3-point favorites in this one. In their Monday Night Football game, Nick Chubb had a gruesome injury. Never want to see that. The replay looked horrible. But that being said, the Browns did bring in Kareem Hunt today. I think he'll be good back there. And I do think the Browns, they have some room this year, even though Deshaun Watson is a colossal disappointment with his field of play. I do think the Browns still have a good roster. I think that defense is incredible with Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. So I will take the Browns to win this one against the Titans, who don't look that impressive in my opinion. And now Hopkins is hurt, so I will take the Browns to win this one and cover 3 points. Up next, we got the Houston Texans heading on down south to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Jaguars are 9-point favorites in this one. And I think this is pretty easy. I'm going to take the Jaguars to win and cover 9 points. The Texans are not ready to compete with anybody. I have no idea in the world why there was no spread for their game last week against the Colts. They were clearly outmatched, and that was the easiest amount of money anyone can ever win if they were betting on a game for the Colts to beat the Texans. And I think this is no different, although with 9 points, it is a little bit harder. But the Jaguars are definitely winning this one. Even though they lost to Kansas City in a disappointing way, no need to think about it. The Jaguars are guaranteed to win this one, and I believe they will cover the 9 points as well. Up next, we got the Patriots heading on to New York to take on the Jets. And the Jets are underdogs in this one. The Patriots are 2.5-point favorites. And this is a tough one because the Patriots are that weird team where they can compete against anybody, but they'll also play down to their competition. And the Jets, obviously, with Aaron Rodgers gone, it's Zach Wilson's show for now. And it's very clear that he's a disappointment. I don't think that needs to be stated any more than it already has. But the Jets' defense is also good, so this game is going to be battle of the defenses. I don't know if any of you remember, but last year they had the game where it was like 3-3 throughout the whole game, and it ended with a punt return by the Patriots. I think this game is going to be eerily similar to that. But that being said, I think the Jets' defense will be enough to keep the Jets in this game. And if they just give the ball to Brees Hall, I think that'll be enough offensively. So I will take the Jets to win this one in an upset, and obviously +2.5, they'll cover the spread as well. Up next, we got the New Orleans Saints heading on down to the greatest stadium of all time, Lambeau Field, to take on the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Packers are 2-point favorites in this one, and the Packers' defense definitely disappointed a little bit in Atlanta. They left a lot on the table. They could have had a lot more points, and they could have stopped a lot more. But it's behind us now, and there's talent on this Packers team. They just need a better game plan, and Aaron Jones back as well as Bakhtiari, as well as a lot of people. But I do think that Christian Watson, Aaron Jones, David Bakhtiari, there's a strong likelihood that they play this week. And the Saints don't look that impressive this year, in my opinion. So at home, with the crowd behind them, I will take the Packers to win this one and to cover -2 points. Up next, we got the Denver Broncos heading on down to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins are 6.5 point favorites in this game. And man, Denver, you just can't stop disappointing people. Even after you somehow complete a Hail Mary, I watched that live. That was pretty cool. And then you fail on the 2 point conversion. I just can't with you anymore, Denver. I have no faith left in you. So the Dolphins, even though their offense kind of disappointed against the Patriots, they didn't put up nearly as much as they should have. Now, granted, I know a field goal was blocked and Jason Sanders missed the other one, but the Dolphins should have scored more points. I understand too, they went with a 3 high safety look, so that limited the deep play potential. There was still plenty to take advantage of in short and intermediate passing. And that's honestly where the Dolphins seem to excel at. So the Dolphins really should have put 30 up on the Patriots. Regardless, they're going to destroy the Broncos. It's not going to be close. The Dolphins are winning, and they're covering -6.5 points. Up next, we got the Buffalo Bills heading on down to take on the Washington Commanders. Now, the Commanders are definitely underdogs here. The Bills are 6.5 point favorites, and the Bills definitely bounced back versus Vegas. I thought that game would be much closer than it actually was. I thought Josh Jacobs would have some success rushing on the ground, but that's not what happened. And the Raiders and the Bills' defense looked great, and the Bills' offensively looked a lot cleaner, looked a lot smoother. So I think this is the Bills that we're going to see through the majority of the year. And Washington, even though they did beat Denver, it wasn't exactly the cleanest game in the world. But and I actually do think that the Commanders are all right, but I think they're outclassed by Buffalo. So I'm going to pick the Buffalo Bills to win this one, and they will also cover 6.5 points. So give me the Bills to win this one and cover. Up next, we got the Atlanta Falcons heading on to the Motor City to take on the Detroit Lions. And the Lions are 3 point favorites in this one. And with the Lions, they're obviously coming off a very disappointing loss to the Seattle Seahawks in overtime. Tyler Lockett with the game sealing touchdown. I don't think that this is a statement on the Lions being bad. I just think the Seahawks put up a really good performance after a disappointing week one. So I still think the Lions are a good team and the favorites to win that division. And obviously Atlanta coming off the comeback victory against Green Bay. And I think Atlanta learned if you give the ball to Bijan Robinson, good things happen. So in this one, I'm really torn. I think it could go 50-50 either way. And I don't have a and I'm stuck on who to pick here. So I'll follow the spread. I'll pick Detroit to win the game, but Atlanta will cover +3. So that's my pick for that one. I'm not too certain on either one though. Don't bet on that one. Up next, we got the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Baltimore Ravens. And the Ravens are 8 point favorites in this one. And if Anthony Richardson wasn't in concussion protocol, I would definitely pick the Colts to cover +8. But with Gardner Minshew back there, even though I like him, he's not a starting quarterback in this league anymore, and that Ravens defense is going to eat him alive. And Lamar Jackson should have a pretty good day with the Ravens offense. I know Odell Beckham Jr. got hurt, story of his whole career, but I still think that Zay Flowers and all of them, they have what it takes to win this game and cover. If Anthony Richardson plays, it's a different story, but I don't think he will, so I'm going to pick the Ravens to win the game and cover -8 points. Up next, we got the Carolina Panthers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. And the Seahawks are 5.5 point favorites. And Carolina didn't really look that good against New Orleans on Monday Night Football. Bryce Young, while he's got some speed, his arm talent and his decision making, there's some question marks there. Now, granted, he doesn't have the best offensive line in the world. In fact, it's one of the worst, and his receiving core isn't that great either. So I do cut him a little bit of slack. Panthers defense actually showed up pretty good against New Orleans, limited them to only 20 points and made plays at key times. So I don't think the Panthers are that bad, but for all they spent to get Bryce Young, I don't think they gave him enough around him for him to properly succeed. As for the Seattle Seahawks, they came off a really good game against the Detroit Lions. So here's what I think. I think the Panthers are gonna fight with everything they have to win this one, because no team can afford to start 0-3. It rarely ever works out. So I think the Panthers are gonna fight as hard as they can to win this one, but it's not gonna happen. So I'm gonna pick the Seahawks to win the game, but the Panthers will cover 5.5 points. That's my pick. Up next, we got the Dallas Cowboys, disgustingly 2-0, taking on the Arizona Cardinals, and the Cowboys are 12-point favorites. Do I really need to analyze this one? I really don't. The Cowboys' defense is good. Arizona is terrible on all fronts. They just can't compete. I know they got a lead against the Giants, but that was the Giants in their lowest form. So I think that the Cowboys easily win this one, and they'll cover 12 points. Although Arizona, they have kept every game close, but this is the first like real team that Arizona's playing, and I hate even just admitting that Dallas is a real team, but I've got no choice. They've had a good year, so the Cowboys win this one, and they're going to cover 12 points. This is the week in double-digit point spreads. Up next, you got the Chicago Bears taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs are 12.5-point favorites. And Bears fans, don't watch this one because you're going to get even more exposed than you already have been. If in Jordan Love's first game, the Packers put up 38, and now the Chiefs are getting a chance to run at you, it's not going to look good, Chicago. I'm so sorry. I feel bad just as a fan to fan, to watch your team get absolutely pulverized and know that it's coming and that there is nothing you can do about it. It's got to be a tough feeling. So I don't have to go into much here. The Chiefs are winning this one, and they're easily covering 12.5 points. If somehow the Bears cover 12.5 points, good job. Up next, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Raiders are 2.5-point favorites. Now, the Raiders had a very disappointing week 2, as I talked about earlier, getting absolutely pulverized by the Buffalo Bills. And meanwhile, the Pittsburgh Steelers, offensively, they didn't look great, but that defense showed up. Like we all thought they would week 1, but they didn't. So TJ Watt, obviously a monster, one of the best defensive players in the NFL. This is another one. I'm kind of torn. I could see it going either way. But I do think that Devontae Adams is going to have a good game against the Pittsburgh Steelers secondary. So in a very close game, I'm going to pick the Raiders to win. And obviously, I'm going to pick the Raiders to win this one and cover minus 2.5 points. I do think it'll be a close game, though. And I could very easily be wrong on that one. Up next, Monday Night Football doubleheader. We got the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Eagles are 5-point favorites in this one. And the Eagles on Thursday Night Football didn't look too good, to be honest with you. Even though they won the game against Minnesota, it was mostly because of that defense. Offensively, they look out of rhythm. They look out of sync. Something feels wrong on offense. What it is, I'm not entirely sure, but something when Jalen Hurts throwing, it doesn't look right. Meanwhile, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're off to a 2-0 start, and they look pretty good. Now, granted, they did play the Vikings and the Bears, two not-so-great teams, but I do think there's something there with Tampa. So I think this will be closer than most people realize. So I think the Eagles will still win the game just off that defense and running game. With DeAndre Swift, it's almost like somebody predicted he'd be a fantasy star. Don't want to take any credit. But yes, I will pick the Eagles to win this game, but I think Tampa Bay is going to cover with 5 points, so that's my pick. And the last game of the week, you got the LA Rams taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals are 2.5-point favorites. Now, the Rams are coming off a loss to the 49ers, but again, the Rams look pretty good in that game. Matthew Stafford looks like he's somewhat back to his old form, so I'm very happy to see that. And meanwhile, the Bengals, they have done nothing but disappoint this year. They're off to an 0-2 start, and Joe Burrow looks terrible. And he really shouldn't. He's got a great wide receiver core. Joe Mixon's not a bad running back. But something's wrong with that Cincinnati offense. So whatever that is, they're gonna have to figure it out quick, or they're gonna be looking down a dark path for the rest of the year. That being said, I do think that the Bengals are gonna rebound this week, and I could see the Bengals having a very explosive game. So I'm gonna take the Bengals to win this one and cover -2.5 points. Anyway, those are my week 2 predictions. Let's hope that I have a better week than last week, at least in terms of spreads. But feel free to comment your own predictions or just how bad and delusional I am as an NFL fan. I'd love to hear it, and I hope you all have a good day. See you next time.